Well, greetings and salutations, test takers. This is Dean Tinney, aka the Series 7 Guru, with our always very special guest, the Test Geek himself, Brian Lee, managing member, Test Geek Exam Prep LLC. We're here every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Main thing is to help you with content, but also some fun and fellowship. Tell us what series exam you're taking, where you're joining us from. If you do have a question, please put it in the format. Makes it easier for Brian and I to pick it out of the chat. So, tell us SIE, what exam you're taking, followed by your question. And that way we're not, fumbling around like, oh, is this 66 or is it SIE or, what the heck is it, right? Some housekeeping details, some very exciting housekeeping details. I am teaching a Kaplan SIE class April 8th and 10th, a Kaplan Series 7 that following week, April 15th and 17th. You can register from those for those classes at kaplanfinancial.com, and the 15% discount code for those Kaplan classes is Guru15 at checkout. I'm also offering an evening basic options class for $35 on April 12th, an advanced options strategy class at $60 in the evening. It looks like I forgot the date. The date shows up at deantenneytutoring.setmore.com. And we have a free live stream overtime session on April 16th. That is capped at 10 folks. So if you're interested in joining us, we whip out a whiteboard and we go through whatever it is that people want to do. Now, Brian, I know you're going to be excited about this next one. We have a new Facebook community called Baby Brokers Doing Hat Tricks.
Okay.
Brian, could you explain what a hat trick is?
SIE Series 7, Series 66.
Right. The hat trick is 3 successes in a row. So I know Brian's a hockey fan. In hockey, what is it? An assist, a goal, or 3 ways you do anything?
Three
you
goals.
got to get 3 goals.
Game.
You can't assist. You got to actually get the goal, right?
That's correct.
Wow. Okay. So anyways, join that community. We're putting all kinds of good stuff there. Some chat rooms. It's mainly SIE 766, but we'll support 6 and 63 and 65 as well. 15% discount, as I told you, is Kaplan. If you're looking for a free supplement, the best free supplement is my YouTube channel. And if you're taking the series, it's organized in series playlists. And you find your series and you can binge through 2-3 different playlists. There's usually lectures, one playlist, practice, test, and practice questions. And the third playlist could be a podcast or an options playlist, whatever the case may be. And it's a buffet. Take what you like, leave what you don't. We have some early birds who sent in some questions. And if you want to send in questions before Tuesday night, you can certainly do so at livestream at guruexamprep.com. But I was just telling Brian, we're going to take care of those questions that came in early, but please use the channel search bar. I mean, there's all kinds of videos. So you can simply put in accretion. You can put in margin. You can put in tax equivalent yield, and all kinds of videos will come up. As much as Brian likes his whiteboard, he probably doesn't like doing the same thing over and over again. But we'll take care of those early bird questions right out of the gate. Now, the best paid supplement for your paid study materials is Brian's paid supplement, Test Geek series. He's done for all the series videos, all in. I did the math today, Brian, because I was trying to refer somebody to you. With the 20% discount that Brian gives our viewers on Series 7, it's about $103 is what I calculated. So make sure you take advantage of that. I think it's the best paid supplement out there. It comes with a very good practice exam that has very strong correlation to the actual exam. All right, let's get to some comments here. Taking the 7 tomorrow. Well, JJ, make sure you get a good night's rest. Rest is definitely, I think, sometimes underrated. You definitely want to be well rested. I don't know about you. When I'm tired, my reading skills are greatly diminished, and you need to have your reading skills in top form. Michigan, we got our Michigander, Jenny. Oh, by the way, Jennifer said she passed, Brian. She was, you tutored her and she sent on the channel.
Yeah, I got the email.
She made her mark.
Yeah.
Right. So Jenny, this Jenny reminded me of our Jennifer. So good luck, Jenny. Yeah, right on. Taking the 7, boom, taking the 10. All right. Sales supervisor in the house.
Yes.
All right, Katie. The natural hat trick. I didn't know there was a natural hat trick, but okay. So one of the things that came in, by the way, if you're going to send me an email, with questions, just remember I'm an old man and I can barely see. So, if you can put in a bigger font or, something so I can actually read what it is you're asking. The first thing that came in early, Brian, was about amortization. And they want to know what exactly they need to know. I usually say, and then I'll defer to Brian, that accretion upward is simply recognition. That you got to know that if you buy a zero coupon done, it needs to be done. The only time you have to do, I think, practical application of that is when you buy a muni bond at a premium and you have to adjust your cost basis downward. I think that's pretty much it. What do you think, Brian, about that?
That's exactly right, Dean.
Yeah. So
now, the question is, are we required to calculate that on the Series 7?
yeah, and Brian and I, if you want to get us going on a rant, that's the way to get us going on a rant, because it is an area where I think, Brian, vendors really, really overkill it. I mean, if you don't know any better, you'd be getting your materials and going, oh my God, this must be important because they spend so many pages on it.
In my course, I take about 15 minutes on it.
Okay.
Now with the top off being only 125 questions, you might see it once or twice. Once, most likely definitional, one maybe computational.
Yeah. Yeah. So again, about 50% of the time I get somebody had to computate the adjusted cost base on a muni bond. But again, I got a zero bond. You want to do it?
Shall we do it?
Let's do it. All right, let's do it. So Brian's going to do it on his whiteboard for us.
Here's the quick notes version, first of all.
Okay.
We're talking about cap gains on munis, right? We all know that interest on munis is tax-free, but
the only thing.
That's right. The cap gains are always taxable. Yeah. How that's handled with munis is pretty bizarre. The IRS says, hey, we've been giving you this tax-free interest. We're not going to allow you to claim a gain or loss anytime you want. You have to adjust your original cost. And what you paid for it originally, for example, if you bought it at a premium, here's the quick version. If it's held to maturity, there is zero gain or loss. If sold prior to maturity, that's when you have to use this straight line amortization, right? Dean, I've always wondered why the heck we have to know this stuff to do our jobs. But anyway, so here's how I graphically visualize this. So this is par value. Let's say we bought the bond at $1,100, quoted at 110, right? And it matures in 20 years. So what you have to do, of course, is to adjust this cost over the life of the bond. So if you hold it, let's say, for 10 years, right? You bought it at a $100 premium. It matures in 20 years. That means you have to adjust this cost by $5 a year. After 10 years, 10 times 5 would be $50. So your adjusted cost basis would be $1,050, or quoted as 105. So let's say you then sold it for $1,060, 106. There is then your $10 capital gain. And that's, there's about 8 pieces to this math. I just think graphically, visually, you can see it a little easier. And
beautiful.
Oftentimes it's sold halfway through its life. So all you have to do is adjust half the premium.
Beautiful. I think, Brian, that's exactly the way I lay it out as well. And again, Brian has that beautiful whiteboard work for you. And again, if you put in the channel search bar, muni bond premium accretion, you can watch 5 different explications of this and practice questions from Kaplan and other vendors. So excellent, Brian. Now, the next one that came in early is tax-free equivalent yield. Can you work through a problem on that?
Sure.
So that's our next one.
Some light version of it on the SIE, maybe definitional on Series 6, definitely on 7, definitely on 65 and 66. It's on almost every exam.
Yeah.
Tax equivalent yield. We want to compare a tax-free municipal bond. Let's say it's at 5%, right? The coupon. And you're considering buying a corporate bond, let's say at 7%, right? Because theoretically that would be more income. But of course you have to pay taxes on that interest. This one isn't. So if you want to see where the crossover point is, right, all you have to do is this little formula, the muni coupon rate, right, which is 5%, divided by the complement.
Big fancy math words coming from Brian.
100% minus the investor's tax bracket. So let's say we're in the 32% tax bracket, right? So 100 minus 32 would be 0.68. So just 5 divided by 0.68. I don't know what that is. I'm going to make something up. I don't have a calculator.
I got the calculator right here. This is a simple function calculator like
there you go.
Exam.
I think it's 7.5.
Divided by 0.68. 7.35 looks like the
there you go.
winner.
So you need to find a corporate bond that yields at least that to equal the tax-free yield of the muni. So therefore, this one won't cut it. It has to be over that to make that a better deal. So again, the muni coupon rate divided by 100% minus whatever the dude's tax bracket is, and that's how you get it.
I would add too, Brian, one thing I sometimes find that people, test takers, find easier is you could also take the 7% times par, $70, and then take the $70 in annual interest times 32%, and that's how much your taxes are, and that would leave you with a net return on the taxable bond that would be less than 5. So you can go either way, basically. Last one, Brian, came in early, is accrued interest.
Oh boy. Okay. One last thing on this.
Yeah, I would say mainly. Hold on, Brian. Don't you think mainly recognition that under the Uniform Practice Code, accrued interest is paid by the buyer to the seller for corporates and munis? We calculate from last interest payment date up to, but not including. We use 30-day months. Govies are goofy, T+1, and they use actual calendars. But every once in a while you have to calculate. So anyways, that's what I was just commenting on.
That's right. One last thing about the tax equivalent yield on many exams, especially 65, 66, they may not ask you to compute it. Yay for you math anxious folks. Yeah. But they'll ask you to recognize it, and it's spelled out all in words. It's not in mathematical form, so it's harder to recognize.
Right.
Be careful of that.
How about accrued interest? Want to show one of those real quick?
Real quick. We know that interest on bonds are paid semi-annually. So let's just say January 1st, July 1st. So the point being is, if an investor owns his bond and wishes to sell it, they are owed not only the market price of the bond, but all of this interest that has accrued since January, right? So this is our accrued interest, not artificial intelligence. Right? Now, as Dean just said, very important to know, both corporates and munis, right, accrue interest on a 3360 day. I tell people that corporate bond guys don't know this method. January, what days have 30, what days have 31, that kind of thing. They don't know how. They don't know how to do that. They
I tell them to check with somebody else in the class because I ain't going to do it. If they're from the Midwest,
right.
They probably.
So they just make it simple, and they just say every month's got 30 days in it, and the interest accrues up to the day before settlement. Right, so you got to first calculate what actual day is settlement. Right, that day before that. Then the accrued interest. So if we trade it, let's say on Tuesday, April 10th, right? So you got to then calculate when the settlement is, which would be Thursday the 12th. Sometimes they take it over the weekend. Be careful of that. Okay? So if you trade it on Thursday, it's not going to settle until Monday.
Yeah.
And you'll get interest, however, still up to that Sunday. Okay, settlement does not include weekends. Accrued interest does. Okay, so be careful with that. So that's one definition, and the other one that Dean said, the govies, the government securities, they use actual days. Somebody in the government actually learned that method, right? In kindergarten. So they use actual days, and it accrues up to the day before settlement. But since govies are T+1. The day before settlement is the trade date. I think that, Dean, is most important these days. I'm not hearing a whole lot of calculation.
Me neither. In fact, I used to tell people they don't even worry about it, but every once in a while somebody says, they had to do that. So
every once in a while.
yeah, it's a low probability. So remember, if you do want to get a question sent in early, just send that to Livestream at guruexamprep.com. Brian, thank you so much. And now let's get back to our regularly scheduled programming, which was somebody who wants to know about any suggestions for taking the Series 6. What tips? I would say, Benita, make sure you got customer counts down. Make sure you got the mutual funds, obviously, retail communications, and variable annuities. You want to add anything to that, Brian?
No, that's it. You got it's only 50 questions, right?
Marcel, you got to get out of here. Brian's telling me that that new steakhouse that they've changed over, it's on me, reciprocity. And Brian, I'll invite Brian to join us. So I will tell Mom below.
I'm getting hungry.
Marcel, I'm sending Mom to Garrett.
Marcel, come on.
Yeah, come on out. Come on out. So we have a couple good places. Maybe we got to take Marcel to Hawthorne.
There you go. Yeah.
Hey, Austin. Austin won the coaching call, and we did that coaching call today. And Austin wanted to talk about capital asset pricing model. We do that drawing at the end of our session, and that CAPM video is up. So the deal on the coaching call is free. It's recorded, and we share it. You can give it to someone else. You can, share it with another participant, whatever you'd like. Yeah, no math. I did show him the math, but I told him, Brian, mainly input, output. Yep. Right. And, expected return, having a general understanding. However,
again,
I did show.
Again, here's that rant with the textbooks. They go way into this stuff.
Man.
And I've never heard one Series 65 question that includes.
Yeah. You know what drives me nuts too, Brian, is even some of the vendors, even after they ask you to do the math, then the rationale, they'll say, well, you won't see this. I'm like, well, okay. So then why the heck?
Why is it there?
Yeah. How many select two of these will we see? Jenny wants to know on the Series 66. I'm not sure what you mean. Multiples of multiples? Not many, Jay. That's what you mean. If you mean like 1 and 3 or 2 and 4, I don't know, max half dozen, you think, Brian? I think more like 3 or 4.
All the exams, the FINRA exams are almost completely eliminated.
Yeah, FINRA doesn't have any.
Exams about 5 or 6.
Yeah, FINRA has no multiples. And people say, don't get us ranting again. Oh, why do the test prep vendors have them? Because nobody wants to go back. They used to. And nobody wants to go back and redo their Q bank. So the test prep vendors have what I call legacy question. The content's still good. It's just that we don't have those kind of questions anymore.
Dean, if I may make a quick comment about some of those Roman numeral questions in the textbooks, oftentimes I see the publishers want to kind of talk about two questions in one, and they use those Roman numerals to do that.
You know what I do, Brian, as a test taker? When I get multiples, my default is all of the multiples. And then what I try and do is read each of them and see if I can eliminate one or one I know to be true, and I use that to kind of pivot in the question, which is a common test taking technique. Dr. Meredith has passed on, but Dr. Meredith wrote the original FINRA exams, and the art of psychometrics writing tests. He would not let people use multiples unless they were testing on 2 or 4 of a thing. His point was, as the head of psychometrics at, he wrote the SAT originally, the GMAT, is that that's not the right format for 3 of a thing. If you want to ask somebody about 3 of a thing, it's the accept format. If you want to ask somebody about 1 of a thing, it's which of the following is true. So
that's right.
Justin, all right. Woo. Well, thank you, Justin, so much. We love when victorious test takers come back and whoa, do we get the bell that late? Is there no statute of limitations on the bell? No. And it's a wonderful life, Justin. They have in that movie, they have an angel who's trying to earn his wings. His name is Clarence. And so every time there's a bell, he says that's an angel getting their wings. And so that's where our bell comes from. And that's a test taker who's victorious, who can now help his clients and make some money. So that's where that comes from. And then at the end of the movie, I won't give it away. Spoiler alert: Clarence does indeed get his wings. I feel like my study meters went overkill on living death. Well, I would agree with that. I don't ever cover that anywhere. Do you cover that, Brian, in any of your content?
I remember 10 years ago there was one question about a particular writer on these annuities. But you
won't find anything on my channel. There's 1,000 hours of content on the channel, and I don't think you'll find that anywhere.
Yeah.
Which is a hint that it's not important. Hi, Dean and Brian. Jared, taking the 65 next Monday. I've been practicing using the Q banks, getting low 70s. Okay. Already paid for Brian's supplement. That's right. We got to keep Brian in the green. And pass exam with high 70s. Any other recommendations? I don't know, Brian. What do you think? Sounds like I say rinse and repeat. Sounds like you're doing okay. You can't beat yourself up too much. Low 70s is okay. Will we like higher? Yes. But, Brian and I think we agree that 70s is where we think you're going to make your mark and be surprised if you didn't. If you're below 70, 60, 70, it doesn't mean you're not going to pass. It just means you're at risk, and we don't want you to be at risk. We want you to have a margin of safety. And this is Tuesday. So, Jared, I think you have time to keep grinding and finish strong is what I would suggest. So pace yourself.
And Dean, what you and I always preach, right? That rinse and repeat. We want to do a simulated exam. We then want to use the performance tracker to isolate our weak areas.
That remediation.
On the weak areas, then another simulated exam.
So, Jared, what we want to make sure you don't do, there's best practices and worst practices. And one of the worst practices, I think, is people who will tell me, bragging, chatting themselves up, I did 4 practice tests today. And I go, what a waste of time. Because there's a couple reasons a waste of time. The biggest one for me, and I'll defer to Brian on this one, is we want real marks of where you're at. And that 4th practice test score is not going to be a true mark because you're going to be tired or whatever the case is. And you're not trying to do practice tests to learn things. You're trying to get marks of where you're at. I call it intellectual inventory. Brian's point, performance tracker, keep putting things in the intellectual ownership category. And that's what you're doing with practice tests. Now, you will learn things doing those questions, but that's the point. So I think more than 1 a day is not beneficial. I think 1 is the max. 1, remediate. I wouldn't even be opposed if it's a Tuesday. What I would say, Jared, is I'll play corporate trainer. If I were your corporate trainer and you were tested next Monday, I'd say, Jared, how many marks are we going to get between now and Monday? What I'm basically asking is how many practice tests am I going to see? And again, it would be ridiculous for you to tell me 14 or 15, whatever the number is. I think, Brian, what do you think of that scenario? Maybe 4, max 5?
I try to encourage them not to do more than 1 a day. I even think that might be too much because I want 1 day to work on these weak areas. And that's where Dean and my videos come in, right? And the class notes. So you can actually pinpoint, work right into those weak areas, like Dean said, to include that now as part of your intellectual inventory.
Right.
You've got to work on those weak areas.
That's right. So that's, I think, and again, now, Brian and I do disagree a little bit. Brian doesn't think it's a number of questions kind of a thing, but I am interested. If I were your corporate trainer, I'm not. I'd be interested in QBank usage because we can't track like watching videos and reading the book. What I can do is if I have an admin key is see how you're working through. There's a direct correlation between people who miss the mark and QBank usage. So needless to say, if you miss your mark and I pick up your Kaplan QBank usage rate and it's like 10%, I'm going to say, well, what have you been doing for the last 3 weeks? One more. Sorry. Let's see. Achievable says that a buyer of a muni bond at a secondary market discount may choose whether to accrete, but Notman says they must accrete, which is right. I think that it's achievable that you can choose in other situations how to set it up. However, the one that is testable, JJ, is the muni bond at a premium, you must accrete, or a 0 coupon bond, you must accrete. So I don't think that's going to be a testable issue for you. What do you think, Brian? Are you with achievable or are you where?
Very, very quickly. We already went through the premium bond. Yeah. I do separate munis out in the secondary market. And I say it's just cost versus sale, that you don't have to accrete.
Yeah, that's right.
And the only ones you do accrete are the original
zeros. That is testable, JJ. That part is testable.
Right. These you have to accrete.
Yeah. And JJ, that accretion on the 0 is not practical application. It's just recognition. And if it's not a muni, JJ, please, this is testable. The accreted amount is taxable, and that kind of sucks because you're paying taxes on money you're not actually receiving. That's called phantom income, right? So that would be testable. We'll be there August. All right, Marcel. August, I expect You're going to let me know, and I'll let Brian know, and we will. Yeah, Brian might not be here because it's too hot for him. He's going to fly back to his bat cave in the Northwest.
Back to Seattle, yeah.
Bradley, thanks so much for joining us from LinkedIn. We broadcast to LinkedIn, Facebook. Our platform of choice is YouTube. We broadcast to X. I'm always excited when I see somebody from Facebook or from LinkedIn. Field is 65. Ugh, 67 laws and regs got me. Well, Bradley, good news. Brian and I have a whole 65 podcast, and I will link to that in the video description after we're done with it. So if you missed these are available as a video replay. They're also available on Spotify, but in the video description, I will put a link to Brian and I's entire 65 podcast, which includes laws and regs. Yeah, Brian.
The first thing that I when I hear or see somebody having trouble with laws and regs, the first thing I want to make sure is they know the difference between state and federal IAs.
Right.
That's why we have a very simple cheat sheet, definition and registrations of persons cheat sheet for both 65, 66, and the 63.
Are you again offering that for free again, Brian?
Absolutely, yeah. I do it every.
All right, so let me give you Brian. I highly recommend you take him up on that.
I work with a gal today who's taken the Series 65.
There you go. So if you would like to take Brian up on his offer of a cheat sheet on definition of persons, we also have a video that we made, and Brian made. I emceed. I'll link that as well. But certainly take Brian up on his cheat sheets. Yeah, Brian.
One of the things we talked about on our podcast, remember, when everybody reads a textbook and they see that de minimis, no more than 5 persons, and then it gets stuck in their head, and then they start to apply it to everyone,
right?
Broker dealers and agents, and it doesn't. It only applies in a very narrow place. So that's one of the things that will help you with.
Bradley, another thing I would mention to you, and I'll link in again in the video description. I was just telling my friend Brian, it's so nice when people pay to do a shared screen practice test, and then they also give me permission to share it. And we have that in the playlist, but I got a brand new one premiering Thursday. It's Oliver and I doing 140 question 65 Kaplan practice test. And if you want, you can go on a ride along with that. I've got 2 of those where you can watch me literally and that test taker. I think misery loves company, Brian, because I did it by myself. I would exploit the exams. But for some reason, test takers like watching other test takers trying to figure out definitions of persons. And Brian, that was the biggest, I think, difference in that tutoring session and doing that practice exam. Just what you said. How many times he got tripped up? RTFQ, read the full question, right? And, he was getting tripped up on those kind of things like de minimis. So I will Bradley put that.
About to say something else. Read.
We'll put that there for you. What topics are best? Sales supervision, Katie. And remember, a lot of judgment questions, and you should always answer those from the perspective of protecting the client and protecting the broker dealer. So it's not about protecting the reps. Would you add to that, Brian, on the Series 10?
That's it. No, you got it. That's it. Yeah.
So perspective is, I think, the biggest thing I would recommend. I caught my hero live on YouTube. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, maybe it's Brian's your hero. Who knows? Flying through my SIE, I'm past perfect chapter 7, 85, looking good. Well, you're flying through, so just stick the landing, right? Just keep flying and take that landing. I have the SIC, our YouTube resource enough to perform well if I have a finance background from college. I don't ever feel comfortable telling somebody not to get paid study materials, whether, Brian's paid things. He makes it very clear it's a supplement. I make it very clear that my YouTube channel is a free supplement. So we're not holding ourselves out as, substitutes for paid study materials. Now, that being said, I will tell you, I have hundreds of hours on SIE. We have 3 playlists on the SIE. We have a lecture playlist, we have a podcast playlist, and we have a whole playlist of practice tests and practice questions. So there's a lot there for you. Wouldn't feel comfortable telling you that, you shouldn't buy a paid study materials. Don't get frugal, by the way. One more point on this, Brian. I had somebody the other day, and, if you have to be frugal, if you're poor and deserve to be rich, good news is the right industry. You may not have resources to buy Brian's stuff or to buy extra stuff, but don't get cheap. And this person, I thought, based on what they were posting, is that they were just cheap. And I go, well, gee, this is not the time to be cheap. Now, I understand if you don't have resources, and this particular person, if you're struggling, we'll help you out. I'll find out a way to get you some help if you need it. So, we do have, I wouldn't call it a scholarship quite, but, oh, well. Thank you so much. Yeah, Brian, you had something else?
I'm sorry. I'd recommend at least one thing, because whether you have content knowledge or not, it's another thing coming up against these multiple choice exams. You've got to get a Q bank. You've got to get a Q bank.
Well, yeah, I would tell you got to tweak your knowledge. I've had the honor and privilege of tutoring, billionaire guys in private equity funds that have to take these exams, and they still. I mean, you can be brilliant. That's not going to be enough. You got to be tweak. You know what to tweak, what for test purposes. So I think a person with a background could easily fail the SIE because there's just too much securities industry related stuff that wouldn't be in your normal kind of wheelhouse, so to speak. So yeah, I'm with Brian on that, certainly. Isaac, all right. So Isaac, I think we were talking about, what were we talking about? Doing a 6 or something together? So send me another email. I apologize. I have really been struggling this last 2-3 weeks to just keep up with, emails and things like that. I'm hoping that I sorted out. Brian got a guruexamprep.com domain, so I can kind of sort emails by where they're coming from and who it is. And I'm hoping that will help me. But Isaac, if you're one of those people and I haven't returned an email, I apologize. That's not my normal MO. Feel free to resend and nag me. And if I can't get this figured out, Brian, I'm going to have to hire somebody just to do.
I've got the same issue, Dean. I've got the same.
Yeah, maybe we could share them. Put them somewhere. Oh man, Jacob, that hurts. That hurts. 72.
Ouch.
That hurts.
Look at the test scores. Find your lowest score. That's your weak area.
Yeah, I would. You can, Jacob, go get the test specifications from FINRA, or excuse me, NASA, and you can go through that, and that'll help you too. I isolate those areas where you can do it. Well, do it while the hurt is fresh. I'm not sure how fresh the hurt is, but the sooner you can do that, the better, certainly. 5 total questions on current ratio. Wow. That's odd. That is odd. All right. Woo! Victorious test taker in the house. LinkedIn. Thank you for joining us from LinkedIn. Hey, I don't know why you wouldn't want to listen to Brian and I about what's tested. But if you want to ask a real test taker, feel free to do so. We got one in the house. Well, there's no right percentage, Emily. It just depends. Using the performance tracker is always to be recommended. I don't feel comfortable with a percentage, but I'm a big believer the higher the percentage. As I said, Emily, there's a direct correlation to people who miss their mark and lack of Q bank usage. So I'm just telling you that if I were a corporate trainer and I'm trying to decide whether I'm giving you another shot, let's say you were, got below 60, it's almost that's a huge red flag. So, you're going to be in trouble in hot water if you come back with a miss and it's below 60, because that's knowledge deficit. 60 to 70, you better have some answers. And then what would help is if, somebody pulls up that and sees that you did the work. And every once in a while, Brian and I know, boy, it hurts our heart, but there are statistical anomalies where people do everything they were asked to do and then they miss the mark. But, that will leave a trail that the person who's going to make a decision to send you back down there. And I think almost every firm 60 plus gives you another shot. Don't you think, Brian?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, so I don't get comfortable with a percentage.
It's a tough question. I even tell people, again, Dean has told you that I'm not the biggest believer of doing all 4,000, but where that magic point is, nobody knows. I don't know.
What Brian and I do agree on is that, he has this thing where, you're going to do your quiz yourself, like unit 1, and move on if you get a good score, unit 2, and then do unit 1 and 2, and then unit 3 and 4. I think you want to have enough data to feel comfortable that you, again, I'll use that term again, intellectually own the content. And I'm kind of with Brian. That doesn't necessarily mean 4,000 questions. It could be lower. The other thing I would warn you about is try not to memorize questions and answers, because if you do 4,000, then you're getting 80s or 90s just because you remember it's B, O, C, D, D, B, A. That's not helpful at all. So try and, if you want to supplement and get some different exams, I'm a big fan of that, just so you're still staying fresh in terms of the content. I did the 65 shared screen with an STC practice test, Brian, and I thought it was good, just phraseology. I said, we're not going to do this if it's not going to be productive, but maybe seeing some different phraseology would be helpful for you.
Yeah. I did one too. I did a STC just Monday. Yep.
There you go. Hello, Dean and Brian. Series 66 question. Was wondering if you could speak to what constitutes a material change. I love this, Austin. There's pivot words, and you're taking part of it as a legal test. Material means something that would alter an investor's decision. I saw a broker being interviewed, Austin. He said, and they asked him why he didn't tell the little lady this information. He said, I thought I'd lose the sale. I can't think of a worse answer. That is the all-time worst answer. I'm supposed to say, Austin, it might alter your investment decision, but this is something you want to know. The opposite, Austin, would be, if I want to stay out of trouble, why didn't you disclose this information? I say it was immaterial. I didn't think it would alter somebody's decision. So what that means to the client is information they need to make a decision, and you can't withhold material information from them. Brian, your comments on that word?
Yeah, there was one. I always use an example. It's a pretty obvious one.
Yeah.
Being from Seattle, I'd like to use Boeing as an example.
No.
Boeing's been in the news a lot.
So sad. They used to be such a pillar of, safety.
Having manufacturing issues, building planes is a material issue, right? That the company started out of a little red barn on the shores of Lake Union in 1917. That's not material.
Yeah.
So that's the example I was.
They had a very legendary CEO. It's so sad to see these once pillars of the corporate community, Bill Mulcahy, and he went to work at Ford. He was a kind of a legend at Boeing. And the engineers at Ford giving him a hard time. And he said, listen, I'm an engineer too. And when you mess up, it just rolls to a stop. When I mess up, it falls out of the sky. It's a little more important, right? So. Hi, Dean. Had a tutoring session a few weeks back. Missed the mark. Damn. Retaking 2 weeks besides Kaplan. Any master exam supplement suggestions? Yeah, James, why don't you send me an email? And let's try and let's free Zoom. You don't have to book another tutoring. And let's just set up a Zoom, get caught up, and come up with a plan to get you back on track. So just send me that email at what am I using now for my email? I'm using things out. What am I using? I think I'm using what is it, Dean? I don't think I got a thing here yet. James, Dean at guruexamprep.com. Dean at guruexamprep.com. So send me that. We'll get caught up. We'll come up with an attack plan for us. 72 on Brian's final. Well, Emily, that's good. I tell Brian's got strong correlation. We'd like you to be higher, but I think you'll pick up some points when you're testing. Let us know when you're testing. 66, Henry, and 24 is any tips? Well, I've got, Henry, good news. I have permission from a person who just passed their 24 yesterday to share her 24 practice test that her and I did together, explicated. I would warn you, Henry, it's over 4 hours because her and I were talking about the questions and riffing and doing all that. So certainly if you could get the time, maybe take it off in bites, maybe 10, 15 minutes here, another 20 minutes there, and work your way through that. See if that's helpful. I don't know, Henry, if you found my Series 24 playlist. I'll link that in the video description. Again, I would go to the content outline of the 24 while it's the herd is fresh and see if you can see what areas that you need to work on. It's been my experience, Brian, and I'll defer to Brian here in a sec, that most of the time people who miss the 24, what they have in common is they're a packaged product person, like you're at Northwest or American Funds or Franklin or something like that. And now all of a sudden you got to take a 7 and a 24, and that banking and trading is something that most people are not familiar with. So I would say, based on your printout, review those two areas for sure. Brian, your thoughts?
That's exactly what I was going to put up there. Secondary trading and investment banking.
That's where usually people drop the mark. Yeah.
Your apps, but man, you hit the nail right on the head. You got it.
Yeah. And Henry, you got to be right on the perspective. It's inside looking out. So, those bids and asks are, inside looking out. Mid-70s. I think that's fine. 23rd. Any advice? Rinse and repeat, Daniel. Rinse and repeat. So, hey, Daniel, you've been a really active participant on the YouTube channel. I really appreciate that. And I don't know, people told me last time that we should have a Facebook group. I'm not a big Facebook fan, but hey, if test takers want to have a Facebook community, far be it for me to keep them from it. But Daniel, if you're interested, it's Baby Brokers Doing Hat Tricks. I just started it 3 hours ago. We got 30 student test takers already. So feel free to go over there. The reason I bring it up with you, Daniel, is because I kind of feel guilty on the YouTube channel. Like, I interact with everybody on the channel, but there's no way for our live streams. I love the live streams. We have a good community here, but it's like, if people want to do study groups or things like that, it's harder to connect through the YouTube channel. So my thoughts are, maybe you can connect a little better with fellow test takers and peers over in that Facebook group. I was using Reddit. I'm still very active on Reddit. And I love that Reddit is anonymous, particularly on 24s and Series 10s, because, Brian, I get people there. Boy, I'm glad people don't know who they are or what firm they work for when they're asking, oh, can I park my registration? No, in fact, that's called. So I do like that part of Reddit, but maybe that'll be a little more community-based over there on Facebook. Any concepts I should concentrate my focus on, particularly more than others for 65. I always say this, Alex: disclosure and unethical business practices would be where I would spend some time. You're currently through a quarter of the way of the Kaplan textbook. And Brian and I will link, have a podcast. I think, Brian, sometimes I'm almost thinking I'm going to put our podcast at the front of the playlist as the first thing you should do, because I'm thinking our podcast, Brian, might put a dent in people's, where they can kind of see what it all looks like in one kind of setting, so to speak. Right now, those podcasts, Alex, are in the second version of the playlist, but I'll put that there at the front of the video description in this replay. Maybe start there. And listen, Brian and I talk our way through the entire 65. Yeah, Brian.
Dean, you and I have mentioned this. We have agreed on this for over 20 years.
Yeah.
Anyone taking the 65, 63 even, and the 66, the NASA, have got to review the content outline.
Yes.
You got to get through it. And it's only like 8 or 9 pages. It's not very long, right? Oh, maybe 12.
Got to put check mark, yeah.
Right? And so you can see the actual concept areas that you need to concentrate on. And they oftentimes, I don't think they do it anymore. They used to tell you how many questions were in each area.
And I was going to add to that, Alex Schobel. The other thing I would tell you about 65 is, Brian and I think both agree, if you come to the 65 as a tabula rasa, blank slate, no other background in securities, it can be one of the toughest exams out there. Absolutely. I'm working with a bunch of attorneys. They're attorneys. Nothing wrong with being attorneys, but they are really struggling with the investment component, because, if you're a 663, you're taking a 65, you at least have some background there. So yeah, I think that's a tough one. And make sure, one of my pet peeves is that damn 65 book keeps getting bigger and bigger. The Kaplan 65 book is now bigger than the actual 7 book. And I'm with Brian. If you actually have the test specifications in front of you, you're better prepared to know where to focus your efforts at. So right on. I'm with you on that, Brian.
It's on
Amato, one of my favorite people. I told you, every time I think of Amato, I think he has no ghost questions. When he has a question, he sends a QID or tells me what the question is. I don't like ghost questions. Ghost questions are where people say, Brian, somewhere in the materials, there's a question that goes something like. I go, okay, well, there's like 500 pages there. And, it's hard to kill a ghost question. Whereas you give me a QID, bam, we can kill that question, be done with it, and move on. Right. So anyways, Amato, you're one of my favorite people. So could you please differentiate between examples of operating activities? I'll give you one right now, Emily. Operating activities is Tesla building electrical cars. Investing activities is Tesla playing around with cryptocurrencies. Financing activities is when they sell you a Tesla and they finance your purchase. So they show up in different areas of an income statement. Here is the problem with that, right? If Tesla has most of its profit from selling electrical cars, their sales are down. Woo! That could go south pretty damn quickly, right? So are they sticking to the core business or not? Now, at some point, they might decide they're going to be doing other things, but the operating activities is the business itself. Investing activities is the investments that the corporation makes, right? Google investing in venture capital, that kind of thing. Financing is when they finance whatever it is they're selling you. You want to add to that, Brian?
I got a couple things to it.
Okay.
Where does that language come from? I've not heard this.
I love Brian. He's so focused. I answer the question. Brian first wants to know, why are you asking? Because it might not be on the test. I'm kind of with you, Brian. Brian brings that up. I haven't had anybody on debrief tell me they had to distinguish on an income statement operating activities versus investing activities, financing. What do you think? Past perfect would be your guess?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. The second thing I'm thinking about, because this looks more to me like plant and equipment, marketable securities, debt and equity. This looks more to me like a balance sheet than an income statement.
Oh, I don't think so.
And that's why I'm saying, where is this language coming from?
I'm got a pretty good background in accounting. I'm not an accountant by any means, but you're right. Marketable securities would show up on the balance sheet, right? But not actually making the investment and receiving the proceeds from that investment. Financing activity, but the good point, Brian. Emily, the other thing that could be financing activities, particularly if like we're taking a 79 or something, is selling. And I think Brian's right if this is what he meant. Selling stocks and bonds. Yeah. That could be financing activities as well, right? Where Tesla is selling right now, right? They need some more working capital. And Tesla sells securities. Morgan Stanley loves Tesla because they're selling all kinds of stocks and bonds. And absolutely. So that could be not only financing your customers, but it could be how you're financing the corporation through the issuance of equity and debt. I'm with Brian. That probably is more likely what they're talking about. But I'm with you, Brian. I don't think I've had anybody ever tell me they got a question on that. Yeah. Dean's drink of choice is Scotch. Well, in the category, JJ, whiskey. Brian likes old fashions. I happen to know that.
Manhattans are old fashions.
Manhattans. So there you go.
Yep.
So toast to both of us. Please do.
Hey, Brian,
I got a super chat from somebody that we helped $50. No, that might actually pay for a round of drinks with Brian and I. Sometimes I tease JJ, all super chats are greatly appreciated. But, somebody will send me like a $5 super chat. I'm like, well, thank you. Well, we could get a chip. That's what we should start doing. We'll turn the super chats into chips and we'll put it on number 7 or whatever. I love this. How high does roulette table go? Do we get all the way up to the 60s?
What's that?
On the roulette table, do we have into the 60s? Like, if we put a chip on 66, if they pass their 66?
36 numbers.
Oh, man.
Plus the 2 zeros, 38.
Man, that would have been fun. I'm kind of disappointed we can't do that. Pass the SIE. Kaylee, all right. The journey of 3-0 begins with 1-0. Woo! Right on. Oh, look at this. Victoria's test taker in the house. Another one. Woo! Jennifer. I told Brian that you had told us you passed. And, that you got a tutoring session and put you over the mark. So, listen, if you need somebody to drag you across the finish line, Brian's your guy.
I told her she made my day today. It really does. I know how much relief this must be for Jennifer.
Listen, that's 66. I'm with you, Brian, right? Because for most people, the 65 or 66 is the final leg of the testing journey. And boy, I think Jennifer will be interested to see if you have kind of an emotional letdown a little bit. Because you've been in the study mode, you've been matriculating through the SIE, the 766. You're probably going to wake up and go, I don't have to study. By the way, don't get too carried away. One of my favorite stories, Brian, 2 Morgan Stanley brokers. They had passed their exam and they decided that to celebrate, they went into the bar. Please take my advice. If you're going to celebrate, don't do it at the bar below your office. Do your bar stuff far enough away. And then they started talking all kind of smack about, Morgan Stanley people who happen to be in the bar. And they lost their jobs after they just passed their 7s. Oh, no.
Ouch.
Any words of wisdom on the 66 from Steve? I like that. Is that a Rolleicord or a Rolleiflex? I used to be in a former life a photographer, and I haven't seen a camera like that in a long, long time with the viewfinder. I'm thinking that's either a Rolleiflex or maybe a Rolleicord. Yoshika made a copy of that camera, I have some very expensive German cameras and lenses. Any words of wisdom for Steve, Brian?
We just got one of our viewers saying they've got 5 current ratio questions, which is perfect segue. I tell people you gotta know your balance sheets.
Yeah,
the actual parts of them.
Yes,
for both the customer and the corporation. There's
right
one
on, Steve. Brian has a balance sheet thing. I have a balance sheet. We'll link to that, and you can check that out. Make sure you got those liquidity ratios down for sure. Thank you. You're welcome. You're welcome. How rare is it from your guys' experience to take the 65 just to become a credit investor? Well, Zachary, that doesn't work. I got some bad news for you. Passing the 65 doesn't make you an accredited investor. It's 65 in good standing. So if you take the 65, then you have to be affiliated with an investment advisor to be an accredited investor. So I do, Zachary, think there's a lot of people who think that's going to be happening, but that's not how that works. So if that is what you intend, it's not rare. I just think people are misinformed about what that is. It's not you pass 65, you become a accredited investor. It's a 65 in good standing. And what that language means is you have to be affiliated with an investment advisory firm. Your thoughts, Brian? Rare? Popular?
Yeah, I have a good idea. Make over 200,000 or have $1 million in net
There you go. I thought it was funny. I was teaching a Series 7, Brian. I thought this was so funny. It was a young lady, and she told me that the guy at the bar was chatting her up that he was a credit investor, and she had no idea what the heck he was even talking about. And then we went over the definition, and she goes, "That's what he was trying to tell me, that he's $1 million." And then when she found out she, with her 7, was going to be a credit investor, if she's in good standing, she said she couldn't wait to go back to the bar and tell him, "Hey, I'm accredited too."
Boy, if you use that as a pickup line, boy,
I'm with you, bro. That needs some help. Need some help for sure. Another 66. Could you speak about client assignment? Very testable, Austin. You cannot assign an investment advisory contract without your client's permission. Second test question is you can't write language into your investment advisory contract that has a client waive that right. So that's very testable for both 65 and 66. What would you add to that, Brian?
Yeah, it's always on the test. Not a lot, 1 or 2 maybe. Most common is a merger or acquisition with a big company. Right. You can't just automatically transfer the client accounts
because they didn't hire that new firm. Right on.
That's right. The other one is, of course, about the majority partner
change in control versus notification. Right. So if a minority partner, Austin, leaves, it's notification. Right. If there's a change in control, it's considered assignment of the investment advisory contract. 65. Well, Emily, we would be interested in who. Oh, it's a Kaplan question. So my friend Chuck Lowenstein is writing questions about investing and operating activities. Doesn't surprise Brian and I that Chuck would write such questions. Thanks for bearing. Won't be on the test. There you go. Here's the Kaplan question. All right. ABC is in the business of making high quality machine tools. Which of the following would be included in cash flow? Oh, well, that's exactly what Brian said. That would be selling stocks and bonds. Right. So Reddit went public, and that was financing activities, and that brought in what hundreds of millions of dollars. So that's not from subscriptions to Reddit. That's from financing activities. So that's selling stocks and bonds. We have rights that get exercised. That would be cash flow from financing activities. The purchase of a new building to store inventory. I'm not sure. Is that part of the same question? The purchase of a new building would decrease working capital, but not our assets, because we've exchanged a current asset for a long-term asset. I'm not sure what the question is. The purchase of new computer-driven lathe, the sale, there we go. It's C, Emily. The answer is C. Right? We're going to sell those bonds, and that's going to bring in some money, some cash flow. Cash flow is the money coming in and going out. So that's the answer to that is C as in Charlie. Payment of cash dividends, that's going to not change working capital, but I would know declaration of a cash dividend would decrease working capital. Taking the 66, Tuesday, failed the first time by 5 points. I'm mainly just doing practice questions now, and I wanted to take Kaplan practice tests. Any tips on those scores are a bit off? I am not sure. No, I think the Kaplan scores, you should have a higher score in general. I think scores reflect the best correlation I find for the 66 Madison, be very clear what I'm about to say, is our friend Brian's practice test, which he will sell to you for $20-something. Now, I don't know how we can make this any clearer. It's just his practices. Do I think it's worth $20? I think it's worth every penny. But Brian sometimes tells me people will hear me say that. They'll buy his practice test and then they'll call him and say, hey, all I got was a practice test. So, but I like that practice test. It's available free on the channel, Madison. So check that out if you
either way. I don't need $20 that badly. If you see it on his video, that's fine.
There you go. But it comes if you go all in, you can get the PDF right
there. That's what I would recommend.
Video. So all in, you'd be. What are your? I don't think your 66s are 100. Is everything $100 basically?
Yeah. With the Guru, it's 103.
Okay. There you go. I keep falling for trick questions. Well, again, the actual exam, Jenny, doesn't have as many trick questions as vendors. Brian has a mantra I love. He says, stick with what you know. And, when you're taking the real test, don't be, answering things where you go, oh, my God, they're trying to trick me. It's only vendors that really have gotcha questions. Like you go, I thought you know it. Ha! And there's some 3-paragraph explanation about how you missed it. So I would say, Jenny, don't let that bother you too much. Stay on the broad avenues and the highways. And when it comes to test time, remember, the test vendors are bigger jerks than the real jerks that wrote the test. So, don't be looking every question like, oh my God, it's too easy. That can't be the answer. Just so you know. SIE, all right. Victorious test taker. Man, Tracy, I love that avatar. Man, if you tell me who did that for you, I love that. I would love to have a Guru avatar like that. I bet if I got that done, Brian, I'd look a lot more handsome if I had a little, like avatar like that. I love that. I'm dating myself, Tracy, but there used to be a group back when I was a young man called AHA. Remember that video, Take On Me? And that reminds me of the cartoon part of that video. Maybe she did it on one of those AI dolly things, right?
Things, yeah.
All the Brian's. I have all the Brian 60 course already. Love the practice test and all the videos. All right. Last one before we do our drawing. Last one, and we'll do our drawing for the coaching call. Whoop. If a registered rep suspects a customer is a potential victim of exploitation, so let's first talk about this of being a senior. In our written supervisory procedures, we have to have something for. It's 15 days, but it can be expended up to, 55 days now, Brian?
Yeah.
So Notman is not mixed. I think Notman is correct. But if you look a little closer, JJ, initially it's 15. On further investigation, we can extend it. I think it's another 20.
It's on the test.
What's that?
It's on the test.
There you go. So
the
15 days one? Yeah, the 15 days is usually what's on.
I believe it's 15. Yep.
Yeah, but they can extend it. So I'm sure that I'm almost positive, JJ, that's where you're thinking there's a conflict of the content, and it's not. It's the 15-day initially. Upon further investigation, we can extend. I think the total extension, I want to say 50, 55, I think. Well, Brian, usually we let Brian pick our word. You got a word for today? Uh-oh. My StreamYard giveaway tool is asking me to check back in.
Uh-oh.
Let's see, maybe we're not going to have a giveaway today. Uh-oh.
It's 73 degrees today outside, Dean.
Okay, hold on. I don't know why I think all those emails I got is confusing our friends at spring. Wasn't spring like last week?
Yes, but it's 73 today, so it feels like spring today.
I don't know why my giveaway tool is giving me troubles. Let me see if I can get at it this way. There we go. Spring, you got to put it into the chat the way that I have it on here. So let me now go get you guys again.
You gonna put it all in caps?
Whoop. Uh-oh, where'd you guys go? Now I got to find you back. What happened? There we go. Hold on. And share screen. No, it's not all caps. It's not all caps. Share screen.
Uh-oh.
We having troubles here in River City. Window.
Well, this thing's been pretty reliable, man.
Yeah, I think it's because I confused it by doing the other things. Let me just go get this. I'll put it over on my other screen and see if that helps. One more try here. There we go. Okay.
Perfect.
And then remember to claim that. Let's get rid of our friend JJ. Those of you put in all caps, that doesn't work. It's got to be exactly as you see it on the screen. And to claim your winnings, you send an email to coachingcall@guruexamprep.com. And that's then you'll get a Zoom link. I'm just going to start sending the Zoom link immediately because you know what happens is, boy, it's been a real, don't cry for me because I make really good money doing tutoring and stuff. But that being said, it's like with my friend Austin, it takes a while to kind of get it all together and get a coaching call done. So I think what I'm going to start doing is just sending the link in response to the email. And that way we don't have to, trade emails back and forth. Okay, anybody else went in on this action? We got 14. Ready to draw? All right, here we go. Here's the draw. Boom. Daniel, you deserve it, my friend. All right, Daniel, send an email to coachingcall@guruexamprep.com to claim your win. And boom, let's see, we got anything else going on here. Let's get rid of that. There we go. Remember, inch by inch, your exam is a cinch, yard by yard, your exam is hard. And you, Brian, say?
You got to keep it simple. Stay with what you know. You take the test. Don't let the test take you.
Woohoo! Hey, remember, check out the Facebook live stream at guruexamprep.com. You got questions for next week, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.